All right, we are back. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties, guys. So we are back here with our interview with a very special guest, Dr. DeSilva. And so before I give his grand introduction, I want to do a quick presentation here for all of you so you know what we're talking about. A very, very important topic for every single person here listening today. We are in unprecedented times, may I say, which is what a lot of people have been using as that phrase, but it's really true, especially when it comes to our healthcare and our wellness. And so today we're going to talk about the 5 pillars of health and wellness. And these are actually Dr. DeSilva's 5 pillars, which are very much aligned with myself and my belief system when it comes to your health. But before we begin, I do want to do a standard disclaimer here that you understand that the contents of this presentation are for informational purposes only and are not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice. So if you have the need for advice of a physician or you have a diagnosis or you have questions about treatment, please make sure to seek your physician or other healthcare provider for your medical condition. So I also wanted to start with some of my 2 favorite quotes that I like to use that is really foundational in how I view the patients. And the first one is actually quoted in 1965 by Rene Dubos, and it says, "The states of health or disease are the expressions of the success or failure experienced by the organism in its efforts to respond adaptively to environmental challenges." Now, this is a very, very important thing to think about, because if you think about our environmental challenges today, things such as toxins or stress on our environment, or even things that are not under our control, like our water, quality of our water, our air, and our food quality, and then how we basically can succeed or fail as an organism. So really that means our ability to be healthy or to be sick. It's dependent on these expressions of the ability to adapt. And sometimes that can be genetic, but most of the time it's environmental. And so I always like to explain this to people that if you're feeling sick or if you have a chronic illness, let's say an autoimmune disease or you have diabetes, it has a lot to do with this statement here of your body's inability to actually adapt and respond to these challenges. And so that leads me to the next quote, which is a little bit longer, but allow me to summarize this. This is talking about your gut. And that's kind of like the foundation of a lot of the things that I do as a nutritionist, is helping people improve the integrity of their gut, whether it's their digestion or their nutrient quality, or also their microflora and their microbiome. And this is a really interesting way of looking at your immune system, because we know that 70 to 80% of our immune system resides in the GI tract. And so I love this quote because it talks about, people who have a chronic autoimmune condition like IC, or even things that are not autoimmune, maybe like an inflammatory condition like diabetes, arthritis, anything that we're chronically dealing with has a lot to do with our body's immune response and the ability to develop inflammation. And so there are some triggers epigenetically, which is your genes and your environment, how they interact, and they actually communicate with your gut. And so a lot of what you eat and how you respond to your environment, stress-related, mentality, spirituality, is based on this very, very important communication between the gut and your immune system. So that's 2 things that I wanted to talk about as well today with Dr. DeSilva. So allow me to introduce him. Meet Dr. DeSilva. He is a practicing internist with 31 years in clinical practice in internal medicine and anti-aging medicine. He is an associate staff in a variety of different teaching facilities, and he actually has a very, very interesting role in nutraceutical development and also in supplements, which I'd love to hear more about. He has a very long bio, several pages long, so I try to abbreviate it here in areas I wanted to highlight. He was actually given the Best Doctor Award in New Jersey and New York by Castle Connolly for the past 19 years. I should have proofread this. And then he's also the medical correspondent of Cablevision New Jersey, News 12 New Jersey. Now, I'm originally from New Jersey, so I'm very familiar with Cablevision and News 12 New Jersey. He's actually in Edison, New Jersey, and I'm originally from North Brunswick. So we actually geographically are very, very close from where I grew up. And he's actually a lecturer and in various different locations and different companies, and formulator of over 350 dietary supplements. And he's been on TV appearances such as CNN, Extra, Larry King, etc. So she's actually a little celebrity over there in New Jersey and very well known, and becoming very well known nationally now, because especially recently, because how I saw him was he was on a Facebook Live and he was doing some kind of speech, I can say was more like a speech, but he was really expressing his opinion and frustrations in what's been going on lately with the coronavirus and just how people are handling it. And that's what attracted me to want to reach out to him, because I was very, very, very interested in just how emotional he was about it, and what he was saying really made a lot of sense. And so when I finally got to meet with Dr. DeSilva, he went over his 5 points of wellness, which I call the pillars of health and wellness. And these include diet, nutrients, movement, hormones, and spirituality. And I was really happy to see this last one, because this is an area that is so overlooked by our current, Western medical model. No one really asks you when you're in the doctor's office, so how is your spirituality doing? No one ever asks you that. So I was very fascinated to see that you'd actually include that in your 5 points of wellness. So allow me to go ahead and introduce Dr. DeSilva. Hello.
Hi there. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I am great. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks for being here. We're really happy to have you. So in a nutshell, tell us about how you came up with the 5 points of wellness.
Well, as when you introduced me, you said I've been doing this for 30 years, and people would say to me, well, I'm doing a great diet, or people will say, I'm really, really taking my supplements. Others will say, well, I take my hormones. Others say, well, I'm in the gym every single day. But very few people put all of those pieces together. So what I said was, why isn't this working? And the reason was that people didn't put all the pieces together. This is a puzzle. This is not just one piece in the puzzle. This is a puzzle that has many pieces that forms a picture, and all 5 of those pieces have to go together in order to bring you total health and wellness.
Very interesting. Yeah. So explain to us, was there a turning point at any point in your life when you had the aha moment, when you said, this is it, this is what I think it is? Or was it kind of just your experience throughout life?
I think it's been a sequential development, because again, in going through this and seeing people every day, it's just been an evolution for me. You had a great visual in the beginning where you talk about that quote by Rene Dubois, where you said that adaptation, it's Darwinian law, that if our organism doesn't adapt, the chances of survival are very low. So it's been an adaptation that I have been, as I go through my own evolution of health and wellness, to put all the pieces together.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because we just had a hamster that we adopted, and he couldn't adapt. He apparently smelled our dog. And it's funny because I always like to look at, organisms that are, non-human, to kind of do comparative parallels to us. And I saw how he couldn't adapt to the smell of the dog. And eventually he ended up not eating anymore, and he starved himself. Eventually he was taken back to the store because he wasn't healthy. So that was his inability to adapt to the environmental challenge posed on a little hamster, which was having a predator, which to him, the smell of the dog, elicited that fear.
Mm-hmm.
So fear is really an interesting, I believe, environmental challenge that we're currently dealing with today.
I read a great quote the other day, and it said, let me see if I can get this right. We are bombarded with information, but is it the information that's killing us, or is it the fear that's petrifying us? And that's true. I think fear triggers so many responses. It debilitates the immune system. It destroys your adrenal glands. It produces inflammation. And those pieces together, without going even deeper, is a very, very serious and a very detrimental thing to the human organism, and in fact to the human species.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I can feel it myself, and I think all of us are kind of feeling that right now. And adrenal dysfunction is definitely a very, very real problem. So let's skip over to hormones, since this is one of your five. So we're talking about adrenals. Can you talk to us what you know about adrenal function, dysfunction, and what the main triggers are today in that?
I think it's what we said before. The main trigger, I've always believed that the main trigger to adrenal stress, which, by the way, a lot of primary care doctors, a lot of MDs like myself, internal medicine doctors, don't even believe that this is a real entity. Well, I hate to tell you, but it really is a real. Just because it's not in, the PDR, excuse me, if it's not in the Merck manual or in one of the medical textbook, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. If you look back 30 years ago, leaky gut syndrome didn't exist either, but it's very real today. So what is the relationship between hormones and adrenals? Well, when you burn out your adrenals and you stress your adrenal glands, there's a direct link to the thyroid. There's a direct link to the pituitary, and then another link into the ovaries or the testes in men. So all of these systems work together. And this is another piece that physicians, and I'm not talking about people, the general public, I'm talking about the physicians, just don't get. We are not a heart and a brain and a lung. We are a system that everything works together. When one system is dysfunctioning, whether your hormones, your adrenals, your thyroid, if one of those systems malfunctions, the car is not going to run. It is just going it may run, but it won't run optimally and it won't function the way it's supposed to function.
Yeah, I always talk to people about this chart that I made on health. And so like there's optimal health, which I call it the green zone, and then there's disease, which I call the red zone. Do you believe most people are living somewhere in between this red and green, and then they're kind of like this, I call it like this quasi like weird, like I almost feel okay, but I kind of don't, I'm not really fully healthy, but I'm functioning enough to keep going?
That's a great question, and it's a wonderful way to put it. Many years ago, I had the opportunity. I received the Alan Mintz Award for excellence in clinical age management medicine. Dr. Alan Mintz was likely called the grandfather of age management medicine, and I heard him say about 25 years ago. I heard him speak at a conference, and he said, "Normal is a risk factor for disease. A vitamin D level between 30 and 100. I mean, how crazy is that reference range? So 35 is normal, but it is not an area, is not a range that you should be in. You have to be optimal. You need to be between 60 and 80. In fact, I just did my vitamin D level and it's 82. That's where you need to be because so many good things happens in that area. So yes, if you want to be normal, that's up to you because that's an orange zone for me. I want to be optimal, and that's the green zone for me. Whether it's your thyroid, your vitamin D level, your hormones, your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, whatever it is, you need to be optimal and not normal.
I'm so glad to hear you say vitamin D. I was just having this conversation with somebody yesterday, and hers was like 30. And she says, but it's in the reference range. And I had to explain to her that we have the reference range and then we have the tighter optimal range. And actually, I think it was this book here. Yeah, it was Dr. Weatherby actually has the optimal ranges, and he compares the difference in the book. And so I have to always educate people on why that range was. Well, maybe you can tell us, where was that reference range built upon, and explain to us why they don't use the optimal range when you go to like get your blood work at LabCorp.
Well, what they do is, let's say you go to a lab and the lab draws blood work on 1,000 people. What they do is they take the low number and they take the high number. And that becomes their range. So anything between the low number and anything between the high number is what they use as the reference range, which is totally, totally absurd. What you need to do is you need to go back, and this is just the laziness, and this is just the inept people in some of these facilities, that they're too lazy to sit down and really look at this and say, what does the data show? Where do the studies go? What is the real level for vitamin D that makes a difference with your health? Versus, oh, 31 is normal. I mean, come on, what's wrong with you? You know, and I don't want to get into the whole hormone thing, but hormones are another issue. In men, for example, a testosterone level of 300 or 350 is normal. But is that really optimal? So thyroid is another great example. You know, when you look at the numbers when it comes to thyroid. So again, we have to look at what does the data show. And the one thing that drives me out of my mind is when doctors, physicians say to me, well, there's not enough data. I just want to slap them and I want to say, are you serious? Well, you've been living underneath the rock? There are books written on this. There are chapters written on this. You're just too lazy to go look at the information, let alone read it.
Wow.
I'm sorry I'm screaming, but
no,
you got me.
I like it. No, please, because you're allowing me to feel it, because I always feel this. So I'm like, thank God somebody else is doing it for me. It's very refreshing. But I want to hear that again in a different way, because I just thought of something. When I entered my doctorate program, I opened up a world of literature, because all I did was write papers. I mean, paper after paper after paper. And I realized that, oh my God, people are doing the studies. These studies are from 15 years ago, some of them 20 years ago, although we try not to go that far. But what amazed me was certain pathologies that I myself had to encounter, for example, thyroid disease or the autoimmune related stuff. I see the literature, but what I always wondered was, why does my doctor not know that? Like, I always question that, and you just answered my question. So they're not doing their homework.
Look, when we get out of our training, as you know, I finished my training in 1988. I finished my internal medicine residency in 1988. A lot of physicians, once they finish, they're done. They're done. They don't want to do anything different. They don't want to deviate from their standard, which is right in here, which is right in that reference range. They don't even know what that reference range is anymore. But their comfort zone, and again, look, I can't blame the physicians out there, because that's their comfort zone. What I think we have to do is we have to look at people. When a woman comes into me and says, my hair's falling out, I'm tired, I'm gaining weight, I'm losing my eyebrows, I'm tired. Well, but your blood test for your thyroid is normal. What happened to looking at the patient? And here's the other thing that drives me out of my mind. There are physicians out there, and I can name names, but I won't. There are physicians out there that what they do, once my glasses come out off it's trouble, right? I mean, so yeah. There are doctors out there that will review a chart without ever talking to a patient. How do you do that? And they will make recommendations. Seriously? How do you do that? It's like saying, well, here's the computer chip from my car. I'm going to plug it into your computer, and you're going to tell me exactly what's wrong with my car. Yes, I can do that, but to a limited degree. Yeah. I still need to look at the car. I need to look at what kind of car it is. What kind of shape is it in? So this is where we as physicians go wrong. We don't look at the whole picture.
Yeah.
And we have to do that.
I went with my mom one time to one of her appointments, and I got very frustrated with the doctor because he just kept pushing her away and wanted to push his agenda forward. And I saw that right in front. I felt so bad for my mother because she was trying to tell her story, and it was like he was listening. And, in school they taught us to do the functional medicine timeline. So I spend an hour with people just listening to their story from the time they were born. From the time they were born, tell me what happened. What about before you were born? Do you know anything about your mother's experience as a person? Because we now know genes can be imprinted, and your mother's experience could actually transform to your health today based on what she had before you were born and while she was pregnant with you. But that's a whole nother topic. And it was very nice to hear, hearing from you. It's very refreshing. I'm telling you, and the listeners are probably agreeing with this, because we do sometimes wonder, well, where the disconnect is. And I guess you have to basically, I think it comes down to upstream. The problem is upstream. It's the system. They're not being taught. And I wonder if maybe they don't even have time. Maybe there's a lack of time from physicians, because they're seeing patient after patient after patient after patient after patient. When do they actually have the time?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know what the disconnect is.
Yeah.
I will tell you, for me, I think for me, it has to be, we have got to go back to a simpler time. And maybe that's what this coronavirus has shown us.
Yeah.
That maybe we don't need to have a waiting room packed full of patients. Maybe what we need to do is stagger them so we can spend a little bit more time with them. Yeah. And this is like anything else, Dr. LaGreca. This is when you take your car to the mechanic. And I talk about cars a lot because I love cars, and I do a lot of work with Mercedes-Benz. So when we go to the mechanic, when we go to the store, when we ask for something at whatever place, do they really listen? Or are they already thinking about an answer before we're even done the question? So one of my messages to people in this medium is step back. Just step back for just a half a step. I'm not even telling you to take a whole step. Take a half a step back and really listen to your children, to your loved ones, to your parents, to the people that are out there that are perhaps trying to tell you something, and pay attention.
Wow. Yeah, I just got chills when you said that, because your own children can also be talking to you, and a lot of times we're so busy in the hustle and bustle of the crazy world, and how it is, with stress and work and paying bills and that, and we just forget that that's a very, very, very important thing for everybody to hear, is to stop and just listen. Yeah. So, well, let's move on to some of these things of the 5 points of wellness. And so what is your dietary philosophy? Because diet was one of the first ones you told me out of the 5. So tell me, I guess we can tie diet with nutrients together, correct?
Sure. I think that what I like to do is I do something called intermittent fasting. I've been doing it for about 5 years now, and I really like it, where I fast for 16 hours of the day. Talk about that some other time. People want to look it up, they can look it up. But the fuel that we put into our body is critical. I work with Mercedes-Benz. As I said, I work with the AMG Driving Academy, and I tell the drivers there, I tell the professional drivers, these cars need 93, 94, 95 octane gasoline. But what we're doing is we as the car, as the engine, we're feeding our bodies kerosene, and then we say, but why aren't I running properly? Well, it's because you're putting the wrong fuel in. And I also tell them, your check engine light's on. Your check engine light's on all the time. You've got diabetes, you've got high blood pressure, you've got heart disease, you got cholesterol issues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Cholesterol is a bad example, but let's forget that I even said that. But you have diabetes, you have high blood pressure, you're tired, et cetera. You have autoimmune diseases. That's your check engine light is on. Are you going to ignore it, or are you going to do something about it? You would have to eat 12 bowls of spinach today to get the iron concentration of one bowl of spinach from the 1930s. Don't tell me you're going to get all of your nutrients from your foods. You're not. It's very simple. And this is data from all over the world. Unless you grow it in your home and you don't have the pesticides and the herbicides and the garbage that's out there, you're in trouble. So yes, our diet, our fuel is critical. And my top 3 supplements for better health: number 1, probiotics, as you mentioned, the microbiome. Number 2, vitamin D. Vitamin D is just absolutely critical. And number 3 is a good omega-3. I think those are my top 3. But if you want to add, during this crazy time of supporting the health of your immune system, I would say probiotics, vitamin D, and vitamin C in whatever way you want to get it. Those are my top 3.
I also recommend multivitamins too, just because it covers everything. And that's
Yes.
the old Flintstones we used to have when we were younger, but somehow we forgot about that. And I'm not saying that we should all be taking Flintstones, but I just remember that my parents used to give me Flintstones. And so that must just supporting what you just said about our food quality. And you probably would love a book, if you haven't read it yet, by Joe Robinson, Eating on the Wild Side. She talks about what you're talking about, and she actually gives you tips on how to make it a little bit healthier. Did you know that taking your lettuce and ripping it up before you eat it actually activates the enzymes?
Makes sense.
Right? Because of chewing.
Absolutely makes sense, because when it shreds, it releases certain proteins. So absolutely, it totally makes sense to me.
Or garlic. I tell people chop and wait 10 minutes.
Oh.
Activate the enzymes for the allicin, which is like
Yes.
the active 10 minutes, then you can actually cook it without destroying it. So there's like little tips you can do. So yes, I completely agree with you, unless you're growing it, but even then, if you're growing it, well, what's the quality of your soil?
Right. And what's the seed like?
Right. And how much sun is it getting, and what's the water? So that goes into nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
So now, a lot of times, okay, let's talk about this one. What do you think of the ketogenic diet and the high protein diet craze?
Look, I think the data on the Mediterranean diet is by far the best. I really do. That's what I follow. I do intermittent fasting. I think every week there's a new diet. There's a new diet. And I tell people, you got to knock it off. Just stop it. All right. You've all dieted. I have never been on a diet. The only diet I've ever been on is intermittent fasting. That's the only diet I've ever been on. I'm 63 years old and I still weigh 152 pounds. All right. And I'm not.
You're on the evolution diet.
Yes. I mean, and that's kind of, it's the way I feel. I feel great. After we're done this, I'm going to go outside and I have some power washing to do, which I love to do, which I'll be out there for another 4 hours. And it's what I do. It's what I enjoy doing. So stop with the diets, like just knock it off and just pay attention to what you're eating. What I tell people to do is to eat consciously. You know that you're not supposed to eat potato chips, bonbons, and yo-yos. If that's what you decide you want to keep doing, well, that's your problem. But you know innately what you're supposed to do. Just knock it off and do it.
Yeah, animals don't think about it.
Yeah.
I love using animals because they're on a different level of consciousness, but there is some level of instinct, and we seem to have forgotten our human instincts.
I like that. I like that you said that we need to follow our human instinct. Instinctually, we know what we should be eating, but we have to be coaxed into it. And I tell people, look, don't waste my time. When you're ready to make those changes, come and see me and I'll help you. Believe me, I will take you to the next level between hormones, between your diet and between your nutrients and between your activity and your spirituality. I will take you to the next level, but you got to be ready to go there. You got to make the journey with me.
So hold this for a second. I'm going to show you something.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that poster right there? It says your desire to change has to be greater than your desire to stay the same.
I like that. That's
where the difference lies. And when you just said you have to be ready to change, there is a point in time where people reach that breaking point. I tell you, majority of people who probably come to you or me are not yet there. they have, I love to lose weight. But when the rubber hits the floor, or whatever they say, when push comes to shove and they're presented with the solution, they're not there yet, mentally, spiritually. I like to think more spiritually. There's always something holding people back. And so, when people are ready, when they hit that point where they're absolutely ready to make that change, where nothing's going to stop you. I'll tell you what my story with IC Healing was. When I finally reached that point, nothing was going to get in my way. And if they did, I was going to run them over.
Right.
I was going to run them over. I reached that point. And so if you told me that I had to eat cockroaches to heal my IC, I'd say, bring it on. How many should I eat? I would have done that. So let's go into spirituality, because I think this really ties into that, because you're saying that people, they know what to eat. It's not rocket science, right?
Right.
They know how to eat, what to eat. It's not rocket science, because if man made it, if it's not natural, if it's not made from nature, if you didn't kill it, grow it, or basically, if you didn't kill it or you didn't grow it, then you shouldn't put it in your mouth. So why are people still doing this? Why? What is going on inside each of these people?
They're lazy. They're lazy.
Laziness?
It's laziness. It's waiting for the car to break down on the side of the road and hoping that you have a number to call and your cell phone is charged. It's as you just said. We all have patients. We all know those people. You give them a solution and they make excuses. As soon as I give somebody a solution and make one excuse, I stop. They're not ready.
Yeah.
They're not ready.
Yeah.
So I think what we have to get to the point is I hope that what we are now seeing, the evolution that we're in with the air, with the water, with the oceans, all of the environment, the evolution of what we're seeing is a cleansing. Maybe we need a cleansing. Maybe we need a human cleansing. Maybe we need a spiritual cleansing. We've missed going to church. Okay, I can't wait to go back to church, but I pray every day. But we are cleansing. And there is a reason for all of this. Besides all the nonsense theories, there is a greater good that's going to come out of all of this. I know there is. And what I will tell patients, and I saw patients today, and I still tell them, please be aware, be conscious, continue to pray, because we know how important prayer is. Do one good deed a day. Every time you do a good deed, you boost your immune system by 40%. If I do a good deed towards you, I hold a door for you, or I let you out in traffic, your immune system gets boosted by 40%. But here's the beauty. The beauty is that every single person that witnesses that good deed, their immune system gets boosted by 40%. Why do you think we all get so happy and so cheerful when we see those babies smiling? I have a grandbaby who's 5.5 months old. When I see that little boy, I'm getting goosebumps even talking about this. And he looks at me and he smiles at me. And I was playing with him the other day and he looked at me and he put his arms out to me. I'm toast. I mean, I am just toast. So that is the simplicity of love. That is the purest form of love. And that's the purest form of healing. It doesn't cost a single thing, but that's where we are.
Wow. Yeah. My grandchildren have definitely added at least a decade to my parents' lives.
Your grandma?
Not grandchildren. Sorry. My children, which is
I was going to say, you look 30 years old. What are you, a grandma already? Come on.
No. I appreciate the compliment. No, my children, sorry, I was just like, I guess what you just said, really struck me, because I was just thinking about my parents and how I truly believe that I'm going to get an extra 10 years from them.
Mm-hmm.
Of my children. They moved here for them. My parents left Jersey to come here That's a big move for my parents. My mom had a huge community of friends up there.
Yes.
She was really heartbroken when she had to leave her community.
Yes. But we will do it for our grandchildren.
That's right.
We won't necessarily do it for our children.
Oh.
But, and I've always said this, I've said this whenever I lecture, whenever I speak at conferences, one of the things I always weave this in. I need somebody to figure out how we can have grandchildren before we have children. That we got to figure this out.
Oh my God. How do we do that?
It's unbelievable when I see our grandchildren. They are just, I
know. Anyway. I see it with my parents. So this goes back to a study that I did. I actually did a presentation in school on laughter therapy.
Yes.
And the hormones are amazing. Like I probably should record this because I have the presentation ready to go. But laughter alone. And so sometimes I've told some of my patients to watch a comedy every single day. There's plenty of them on YouTube.
Sure.
You gotta do is Google comedy if something comes up. Or even watching animals. You ever watch the animal shows when they're being with the bloopers? Yeah. Just doing that once a night will raise endorphins, raise serotonin. The act of laughing, true belly laughter can downregulate cortisol. Mm-hmm. And we're living in this goes back to spirituality. I wonder if we have just become this chronic, stressed out, angry, society where we're just angry all the time. We got bills to pay, they're piling up, there's too much work. We're just like, and I saw this in my neighborhood when I was walking the neighborhood and I saw all these people because everybody's home now. And all these people who are usually running around, shuffling their kids to all their sporting events, which can be stressful to a parent. You come home from work, boom, now you got to go to a soccer game. Boom, now you got to go to the other soccer game. I see these neighbors I've never seen before. Right. And they're happy and they're saying hello to me. And we're in the South. We actually do say hello down here, which I know they don't do it up there. Funny story, when I first moved down here from Jersey, the first person that said hello to me in the grocery store, I turned around and went, me? You're saying hi? But no, really, people do say hello here, but more people were saying hello. And it was just interesting. I'm like, oh my God, I lived here for 4 years and I've never met you. You live down the street from me. Yeah. So I think you're right. I think that these are times where we're really at a point where we're really thinking about really slowing down, right? Is that what you're trying to get to? That we're just kind of have to step back, slow down, look around us and see what is really going on. You've got these beautiful children. You've got these beautiful grandchildren. I want to stay healthy so I can continue to live the vibrant life that I deserve so my children can have the mother that they deserve. What motivated me to want to get better from IC was just that. My children didn't deserve to see their mother sick all the time.
Right.
I didn't deserve to not be able to enjoy my time with my children because I was sick all the time. Then that boils down to spirituality. And so the next piece of this and the final piece of your 5 things is movement. So how tell me what your philosophy is on movement, because you can go a lot of different directions with that.
Right. What I tell people is you got to do something that you enjoy. Do something every day that you enjoy. As I said, I'm going to be going out and just doing some work outside. It's not exercise, right? The definition of exercise is a sustained heart rate for a sustained period of time. I play a lot of tennis. I play a lot of pickleball. Those are my forms of exercise. So find something you like: bike riding, walking, running, tennis, whatever it is you like, do it. And do it for 15 to 30 minutes a day. No excuses. Everybody has an excuse for everything. Like, again, I tell people, stop it. I don't want to hear it. If you're not committed to doing all of these pieces, don't waste my time and don't waste your money. So when I talk about movement, when I talk about exercise, I'm talking about movement, being active, walking around, going for a walk, whatever it is you enjoy doing, do it every single day.
I want to finish that statement with non-exercise induced thermogenesis needs non-exercise activity thermogenesis. I think that's what it is. Anyway, it's called NEAT, N-E-A-T. And basically what that is we're finding out that the amount of calories you burn in the day is actually more NEAT than it is your exercise. So you can spend 30 minutes jogging. We actually burn more calories doing everything else in life. So, yeah. So then in the weight loss community, we try to tell people to do more NEAT. Don't be slaved over, I had to do 30 minutes on the elliptical trainer today, or I got to go jogging today. No, just be active. And like you said, if it means, power washing and something that's you're power washing your house?
No, I've got a big deck out there that I'm going to do.
Okay. But still, you're going to have a beautiful, clean deck when it's done.
Yes.
And that's going to give you endorphins
Yes.
and raise your serotonin
Absolutely.
and raise your immune system.
Come over and I'll do a great cookout for you.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Well, I really appreciate your time. Is there any other message that you want to tell the listener or the people on Facebook Live that you just really want them to hear? Like one thing.
Learn to love yourself and you'll be very happy.
That's very true. That's very, very true. So, well, I appreciate your time. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I really enjoyed being here. And God bless you and God bless our audience.
Same with you. God bless you too. And go do your power washing and go get some orphans.
Take care.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.